recently found out that this month is ADHD Awareness Month. And last time this year, I had yet to be officially diagnosed. So I thought I'd just make a video sharing some things that I've learned in the months since being diagnosed. Being diagnosed as an adult is kind of strange because, like, you've lived your whole life you live your whole life a certain way, right? Like, how are you supposed to know that your brain is the exception when it's all you've ever known? And I saw a meme that was kind of, I don't know, maybe not a meme necessarily, but it was saying how, like, finding out you have ADHD as an adult is like watching your favorite mystery for the second time, where you already know the answer and you can already solve it, right? And then all of a sudden you see all the breadcrumbs that you're like, how did I not see this before? How did my teachers, how did my family, how did anyone, like, of course it's that, right? Like, all of a sudden you see all the little details, I guess. I think one of the things that has changed for me, maybe the thing that's changed the most, at least right now in my sort of immediate, like, things that I do in my life, I guess, is my approach to bigger projects. I used to just kind of cram, whenever I got the slightest inkling to work on something, I would just kind of cram, and then that led to a lot of burnout. And I was burning out so much faster because I would run full speed for a night and then not knowing, and then I just, I wouldn't have the energy to continue pursuing that project or that thing or whatever. And knowing now that I struggle with executive function and motivation, for example, that's helped me to work with those limitations instead of against them. And I will say, even with medication, like, I'm not immune to my weaknesses. So I still have to be careful not to procrastinate or things like this. And I still have to work towards motivating myself and towards, like, sometimes I have to create smaller goals, for example. And there are a lot of strategies that I've tried, and I'm also definitely still learning every day. It's kind of fun though. If you're one of the 13 people that watched my last couple writing videos, you know that I'm working on a second draft of a novel right now. Even with medication and a diagnosis of ADHD, this has obviously been a huge undertaking. But I think I trust myself more. That's also another thing that's changed, is I know it's a lot to finish a project of this size, but I also know I can do it. And when I look back, I can see the progress I've made over the last several years. Not just with writing, but with maintaining sort of the drive and the focus necessary to complete one of those larger tasks, such as writing a book. I feel like the progress I've made in the years since being diagnosed has been more efficient than, the previous 5 or 10 years, right? Like, I feel like a lot has happened in that last year that's helped me to kind of get some projects done and figure out what works for me. But I will say all the progress is also, like, it was all necessary, right? So progress, whether big or small, is still progress. Sometimes I feel like I was running a marathon with ankle weights on, and then, like, the diagnosis and the medication, it's sort of like taking off those ankle weights and all that extra baggage that's slowing you down. Like, dude, now I can freaking fly, dude. And I was diagnosed with the combined presentation, which for ADHD, there's a few different types, but basically combined presentation means you have issues regulating your attention, and also you have the hyperactivity commonly associated with ADHD. So I feel like that diagnosis really connects a lot of dots for me, and I feel like a huge amount of relief to have, like just to have the language to explain it now, and just try and see, like, oh, here are strategies that have worked for people in similar situations. Here's the way that your brain works differently, or here's some things to kind of combat those maybe like frequent pitfalls for someone with ADHD. I'm no doctor, so take everything I say with a grain of salt, but I do take ADHD meds regularly, and I have found them, I take them every day. I found them to be quite helpful. For me, I feel like my brain is quieter. I don't know, like, there's not like a easy way to describe it, but I feel like I'm able to better, like, choose the things I want to focus on and work on. So instead of trying to filter through the noise all day, I can kind of parse through the information and pick and choose a little easier. My meds don't last the whole day, so it's not like a perfect fix, or it doesn't, like, turn off the ADHD, right? But they've helped me a ton with sustaining focus and productivity throughout the day. I've been making a lot of effort to wake up and take my meds at a slightly consistent time. I usually give myself about an hour window that I try and take it in every morning. And this has helped me to better regulate my schedule for sleep, which, if you know me at all, is something I've always struggled with. It's kind of funny because there are still days where I just wish I could stay up and pull an all-nighter or stay up super late and just kind of bust out a bunch of writing or whatever other project. But I know that it sort of will have more like it's more of a detriment than a help to do that. And so I know calling it a night is better for my overall health and also just productivity long term. And so for me, productivity is a marathon and it's not a sprint. And so I feel like I'm less prone to burnout now because I know, okay, I got to pace myself a little bit. And this is a result of many factors, including just knowing that I was prone to burnout, right, has helped. One thing that has been great is that I no longer feel the need to capitalize on the smallest ounce of motivation or excitement on a project. In the past, it was like, oh, I'm kind of excited about this thing. Okay, run with it and, drop everything else. And now I can kind of, I know that I can work on it later and I can come back to it. And I know that I'll be able to find the focus and the clarity to work on it at another time. So the pressure to just work on it right then and only then is not there as much. And I'm able to regulate that attention more easily, I guess. And I still start more projects than I finish. That is, that's like my thing, I guess. But I'm also finishing projects slowly but surely. So, I do start a lot, but I'm also sort of like checking off the boxes. Over time, I'm sort of making it happen, even though it's not a perfect solution. I think getting diagnosed was a turning point for me in my mental health journey. Before, I kind of thought like these limitations were my fault, or I thought, I just kind of blamed myself. But now I can see that there is hope to overcome them, and that they are not just because I'm lazy or whatever else, but my brain just works differently. I've been able to slowly reconstruct the narrative around my life, right? Like I can sort of I've been able to include forgiveness for myself, right? And say, you know what, my brain does work differently, and that's okay. And here are some things we can try to kind of get the things done that we need to, even with our sort of unique perspective or unique strengths kind of thing. And I no longer blame myself, but I'm also just less hard on myself when I do fall short or when I do have those struggles to get going and get motivated. And I trust myself and my progress, and I can sort of see, it helps me see through the completion of these projects that I'm passionate about. And it helps me to finish these things that I think otherwise would be a lot harder. And I know based on how many times I've tried to write a project, that it has made a difference, just knowing and having the extra support that I need there. I think sometimes we need a different approach, and what works for others and what works for you is not always the same thing. And so this is there are things that have worked for me that aren't necessarily going to work for you, and vice versa, right? But I think it's kind of exciting. Like I don't have to take the road that they took. I can find my own journey and make my own path. And the discovery sort of keeps me entertained, right? Like the process of figuring out what works for me kind of gives me a lot of trial and error, which can be kind of daunting or exhausting, but it's also an opportunity to kind of see what you're made of. And the other good news is you don't have to do it alone. So thanks for watching.